Howdy folks, today I'm showcasing a build for the Executioner. The setup makes use of the Executioner's high speed and built-in mask and jump jets to brawl. Despite being an assault mech with a tall profile and less than fantastic hitboxes, it performs pretty well. And the mobility buffs from yesterday's patch help it out in that regard, even more. So let's get into it. The idea is pretty simple. Use lasers to open components up and a big shotgun to blow them to hell. Now the Executioner is a little tricky to make builds for owing to the massive engine, the mask and jump jets all using up a lot of tonnage, but mercifully the Executioner has a lot of hardpoints, which is pretty great for boating a lot of micro lasers, which we have 10 of. That's just enough before ghost heat, and we round that laser suite off with a large pulse laser. Funny thing to note here is that the large pulse laser generates almost as much heat as all those micro lasers while dealing half of their damage. You basically have about 3 large pulse lasers worth of damage for the heat of 2 here. Granted, that's with a lot less range, but hey, it's a brawler. And then of course an LB20X to blow out components that get opened up and just wreck things. Looking now at the skills, under the firepower tree I prioritized range to help those micro lasers hit out a little further, and heat gen to keep the DPS monster DPSing. I also grabbed the LBX spread and magazine capacity nodes for obvious reasons. Laser duration nodes are less important here. The micro lasers don't have that long of a duration, but I figured, hey, I'm in the neighborhood anyway, why not grab them? Could be argued that the Executioner doesn't need to focus so much on firepower. You could invest into other trees as you deem fit. You wouldn't be losing a whole lot, but that's really up to personal preference. Onto the survival tree, mostly prioritizing the left side for the armor hardening nodes. You are a brawling assault mech. When the fight breaks out, you will be shot at, possibly by multiple people. You want to have as much endurance as possible. I also snagged some structural density quirks just to amplify survivability that much more, and there are some structural quirks on some of the omnipods, but they're really not that important. It's mostly just about staying in the fight as long as possible. Under mobility, we get all the speed tweak nodes to amplify this mech's already ridiculous speed. It has a huge engine and it has mask. You may as well push it to the limits in that regard, and you do get just over 90 kph in this thing, which is pretty comical. I would say it's not completely necessary, but hey, this is a silly fun mech. Might as well amplify the silly fun, right? I skipped jump jets completely, as well as operations, although in that case, you could argue for Cool Run. The Executioner has a lot of heat sinks built into the chassis, and we have a couple of extra, but the heat is pretty manageable in this thing, especially after the changes in the previous patch. I also left sensors and auxiliary untouched. You could definitely make the argument for sensors. Getting some radar deprivation and a thing of seismic is not a terrible idea for a brawling assault mech, but in my case, I figured once I go into the fights, I tend to just stay in them and they have less effect for me. But that's really up to personal preference. As is auxiliary, that's really just what you like, so what the hell. And that's it for the build. There are codes and links in the description, and now onto some games. And we start off by observing my lance mate's lovely brush. It's supposed to be a tank cannon, but it kind of looks like a brush, which is his shtick. Moving on. In this game, the teams get a bit split up, with me and my buddy and some other guy coming into the pass here.
New target acquired.
Now I'm firing at this guy beyond the micro laser range. Really, I should have used a different weapon group, or honestly, just not bothered at all. Get some good damage on this Panther, though. That's quite tasty. I wanted to finish him off, but just couldn't quite find it. Now I'm waiting here for a moment for my buddy to catch up. He has a SRM Cyclops, so it would be of pretty good assistance here. Get some good damage on this guy while he's peeking. And I see that Panther and I really want to polish him off. And there's the first kill. here I'm firing just within max range of the micro lasers, but again, could wait for a better opportunity. That being said, that Battle Master is starting to get opened up, so it's time to start tearing his mech apart. And with one Battle Master pretty much out of the fight, it's time to focus on his friend and tear him apart. I dug back here to let my heat get back down a bit, and my buddy is more than happy to slam this Battle Master.
Target acquired.
And with that Battle Master out of the way, we proceed to finish off the other guy, and from there move to the rear of the other side of the enemy team. Luckily for us, the rest of our team seems to be at a stalemate with the rest of the enemy team, so this gives us a great opportunity to move in and hit some rear ends, with one of our first targets being an LRM trebuchet that's pretty much just fodder for us.
Enemy base is being captured.
These locusts running around here have me a little concerned. Their machine guns could pop the weapon in my exposed arm, but they end up going down pretty quickly, so it's not really a huge issue. The rate of fire on the micro lasers is pretty conducive to knocking out light mechs quickly.
New target acquired.
And from here, it's pretty much just cleaning up. The enemy team is far too outnumbered to be able to accomplish much of anything anyway. And as this Annihilator demonstrates, they're all very, very heavily damaged.
Target acquired.
And that's the first game. A rare instance of mutually split teams, but it ended up working out in our favor, so hey. And with 7 killing blows, I was a bit sad to again miss the cutoff for Ace of Spades, but all the same, very pleased with a rear flank working out so well. In this next game, I had gone to this side of the map to do the usual 7-line push, but the rest of the team decided to go down the middle, which I found rather bizarre, given that the middle area is usually a terrible place to go on account of being a killing field where players can be easily picked off from all around the rest of the battlefield. Even so, I decided that it's still better to stick with the team than run around on my own, and I may as well see what I can accomplish here.
New target acquired.
In hindsight, I think this was a great demonstration of the Executioner's high speed for an assault mech, where I was able to get back into the position and quickly advance into an area where the enemy team was probably not expecting another assault mech to already be. Even so, I'm not sure what possessed this Marauder pilot to go out on his own. I wonder if he didn't realize the rest of his team was not following him down here. Thankfully, my team's in perfect position to make use of his error. Thanks to help from my team, we quickly finish off that Marauder, and from here it turns into a little bit of a stalemate with me poking out to get a little bit of damage, but that's not a great range for the micro lasers. Now in comes a Kodiak. Thankfully I've got my buddy here who is always willing to feed nearby enemies scoops of SRMs, so we're able to deal with this threat pretty straightforwardly. Unfortunately, he steals our kill by committing suicide. Oh well.
Target acquired. New target acquired.
Here's a great instance of the LBX-20 doing its thing. It immediately pops that heavy Gauss rifle off that Fafnir. And after this, the game settles into a bit of peekaboo around this corner, as neither team is willing to fully commit to an outright attack on the other. I'm in a decent position to deal some damage to enemies, firing the wrong weapon group for the arm lock lasers. Oh well.
New target
Not a huge
acquired.
deal since we're not really in the thick of combat, and otherwise it's just peekaboo until one side decides to commit to an engagement.
New target acquired.
A little more aggressive since I've got some good opportunities here. The supernova is mulch.
Target destroyed. New target acquired.
And from here we have enough of an advantage that me and my buddy just start pushing in.
New target acquired.
Dropping down here to get out of some missile and other fire coming in toward my
New
rear.
target
It's not too
acquired.
big a deal because, again, the executioner is quite fast, so getting back into combat isn't a huge deal with this thing. And really, at this point, it's just cleaning up
New
anyway.
target
There's not that
acquired.
much left. It's a handful of light mechs and various other fodder.
New target acquired.
Target spotted.
Warning incoming missile.
Target spotted.
Warning incoming missile. New target acquired. New
This
target
poor urban mech
acquired.
is left down to an AC2. He's still rather annoying, but there's not much bite there, really. A little tickled that me killing an urban mech activates my urban mech warhorn. Just an amusing thing.
Target spotted.
New target acquired. Target
Target
acquired.
spotted. Target spotted.
Destroyed. New target acquired.
Target spotted.
Target destroyed. Target acquired.
Target spotted.
And that's the second game. Still surprised that charging down the middle like that worked, but thankfully we ran into a fairly passive team that wasn't willing to commit to a direct engagement with all of us in the valley. So hey, it works out. And I came out of that with a tasty 980 damage. And in this last match on Grim Plexus, being a brawler, it can be hard to find much engagement early on when there's a lot of mid to long range peeking. So for this duration, I was mostly hiding and keeping an eye out for enemy movement wherever I could see it. At this point in the match, one of my teammates tells me that he'll cover me so I can move in, which I really want to do so I can actually start dealing some real damage. In this case, I thought there would be more enemies to this rear flank, so again, I make use of the high masking speed to get there as quickly as possible, taking a little pot shot on that guy. Out of micro laser range, but whatever. Not really committing to that engagement anyway. I have other targets over here, or at least so I thought on the approach.
New target acquired.
Target spotted.
New target acquired.
At the very least, this Wolverine is still over here, so he is fantastic fodder for this mech to bully. While the Executioner certainly doesn't have the firepower of most proper assault mechs, it's still more than enough to just bully medium mechs.
Target spotted.
And unfortunately for him, he shut down. Not that it would have made much difference for him anyway. And from here, we really need to move back to the rest of the team. We've got a bit of a NASCAR thing starting, and I am much better served being in the midst of the team to actually take damage rather than out by myself somewhere.
Target acquired.
Thankfully for us, the enemy team is actually a bit split up here. Some of them wanted to engage our forward elements while other people wanted to participate in the NASCAR, and we are in a great position to make use of that situation. We quickly finish off the Bloodass and then move on to his buddy, who is also easy pickings for me and my team.
Need assistance.
And with that out of the way, we continue to race along. I'm probably beginning to sound like a broken record here, but the high speed plus mask on this large mech is rather fantastic for catching up to enemies. In this case, we're basically out NASCARing the NASCAR players. This catapult makes a futile effort to run away. There really just aren't many inner sphere heavy mechs capable of outrunning this thing, so he's easy pickings. And down he goes. All these damaged mechs with open components are fantastic targets for this build. It's able to easily move in and around and polish off several mechs in short order.
New target acquired.
This very distracted Battlemaster over here makes a great demonstration. As he goes down, well, quick.
New target acquired.
The chaos of the brawl is actually pretty fantastic for this mech, being able to take advantage of a lot of movement and pick off confused and distracted enemies.
Damage. New target acquired.
I don't quite manage to finish off that Wolverine, but it's fine. One of my lance mates has him taken care of. And that's the end of that. A little tickled that my buddy and I managed to finish off the last couple of enemies at basically the same time. And with over 1,000 damage dealt this round, I think this serves as a good demonstration of the potency of this build, so long as you're able to play around the Executioner's shortcomings. And that's it for this build demonstration. I hope you all enjoyed watching, and take care now.